Welcome back to part 4 of how to play Warhammer 40k 9th edition. The movement phase advanced. This video will cover the fly keyword, aircraft units, and transport units. Some models' datasheets have the fly keyword, such is the case with this Inceptor squad. When a unit has the fly keyword, when it makes a move, advance, or fallback activation, it can move across other models and their bases as if they were not there. They have a special exemption in that they can be moved within engagement range of enemy models, and it allows these Inceptors the ability to effectively use their jump packs to fly over these demonettes, which would normally hinder ground-based units. In addition, vertical distances up or down is ignored for models with the fly keyword. Combined with their move characteristic of 10 inches, it enables these Inceptors to effortlessly reach the top of this ruin. Some models have the aircraft keyword, such is the case with the Storm Raven gunship. In addition to following the rules mentioned for flying units, the following rules are specific to aircraft units. Aircraft units often have a minimum and maximum move characteristic. When aircraft move, they must move no less than their minimum and no more than their maximum. And should their move characteristic be modified, both attributes are adjusted accordingly. If an aircraft is unable to make its minimum move, then unless you have access to strategic reserves and are therefore battle-forged, the aircraft is destroyed. This includes any units it may be carrying should it be a transport. As explained in part 2, if the player has access to strategic reserves, then the aircraft enters strategic reserves and is free to arrive later. While aircraft do have an engagement range, they are treated with a few exceptions to better represent them being high above the battlefield, and minimize awkward rules interactions with units on the ground level. Models are able to move freely across the bases and enter the engagement range of aircraft models as if they were not there, but they cannot end their move on top of the bases, models, or within engagement range of the aircraft models. Aircraft units are able to make a normal move or advance even when enemy units are in engagement range with it, meaning aircraft do not need to fall back and become inhibited because enemy models are within their engagement range. And in turn, if the only models in engagement range with a unit are aircraft units, then that unit is free to make a normal move or advance move, meaning they are not being tied up by an aircraft high above them. Some models have the transport keyword, such is the case with this repulsor. All transport units have a limit on how many models and of what type it can transport. This is noted on the model's datasheet. Units can start the battle embarked in a transport. Just simply declare what units are embarked within a transport before you set it up. Not only does this apply to units deployed as standard on the battlefield, but also for units deployed in a location off the battlefield, such as with reserves. Most of the time units will be disembarking from transports. If a unit starts the movement phase already embarked, it can perform a disembark action so long as the transport itself has not yet made a normal move, advance, or has fallen back that phase. Let's assume this is the case for this repulsor, which is carrying 3 aggressors, and has not yet moved in its movement phase. When a unit disembarks, set it up on the battlefield so that it is wholly within 3 inches of the transport model and not within engagement range of enemy models. Because of where these demonettes are located, these aggressors can't disembark in front of the repulsor because there's no way for them to fit within 3 inches of the repulsor without being in engagement range of the demonettes. If it is not possible to disembark meeting the specified criteria, then the unit within is not able to disembark and must remain within the transport. So instead, these aggressors will disembark off to the side of the repulsor, which meets the aforementioned criteria. Units which disembark from transports are now free to act normally, but cannot choose to remain stationary. Even if they remain where they disembarked, they are considered to have made a normal move. And transport units which had units disembark from them are able to act normally. In this scenario, the rules interaction allows for these aggressors to disembark from the repulsor, and for the repulsor to fall back, enabling the aggressors to deal with these demonettes. Units can also embark within transports if the following criteria are met. They must end their move, advance, or fallback activation so that every model within the unit is within 3 inches of the transport model. The transport cannot be within engagement range of enemy models. This would be the case with this repulsor here. In this scenario, the repulsor would need to fall back first, and then the intercessors could embark. The embarking unit cannot have disembarked from a transport in that same movement phase. Should all the criteria be met, that unit is considered to be embarked, and is now removed from the battlefield. Typically, embarked units are non-interactable while within the transport. Unless specifically stated, abilities have no effect and stratagems cannot be used on them. For all rules purposes, units that are embarked within a transport count as having made the same kind of move that their transport performed that turn. For example, This Landspeeder Storm has the open-topped ability, which allows units inside the ability to fire weapons while embarked. So if the Landspeeder Storm makes a normal move, advances, or remains stationary, the models inside, which can shoot, are also considered to have made that move as well. Should a transport be destroyed while units are embarked within, the following sequence takes place. First, resolve any explosion or death throw rules, which are noted on the unit's datasheet if applicable. These rules have you roll a d6, and depending on the result noted in the rule, it can deal mortal wounds to nearby units. The mechanisms on how damage is resolved will be covered with the attack sequence. But in this example, there is nothing nearby to be affected by an explosion anyways. Then any embarked units must immediately disembark following the rules for disembarking, before the transport is removed from the battlefield. These models are not affected by the explosion, but instead a d6 is rolled for each model that has disembarked. And for each roll of one model in the unit is destroyed, selected by the controlling player. Units cannot declare any charges, or perform heroic interventions in the same turn they disembarked from a destroyed transport model. But let's imagine the worst case scenario, where the enemy player has surrounded your transport, destroying it in the fight phase. Following the standard sequence for disembarking a destroyed transport, the models within cannot disembark outside of the enemy's engagement range, but also wholly within 3 inches of the transport. In this case, the disembarking models are not valid to disembark, and are destroyed. This scenario is a perfect example of number 3 of the core stratagems. For one command point, it is used when a transport unit is destroyed. It allows models which disembarked to be set up within 6 inches of the transport instead of 3 inches. But when rolling to see if models are destroyed, rolls of 1 and 2 result in a model, user's choice, being destroyed. Similar to Desperate Breakout, it allows for a riskier alternative. But in this scenario, it means the intercessor's models are not stuck in the transport left to be destroyed. And with that, we have finally covered the many interactions of the movement phase. In the next video, we will cover the psychic phase.
Oh, goodness, what's going on?
Stand back, Mother! We're having a telekinetic battle of men!